Good morning. Hello, 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 hello. I am running a little bit behind today. Typically, I like to go live in the mornings, um, but today I have decided to do it this afternoon. It is Monday, September 25th. It's currently 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I wanted to just, read a couple of things that caught my eye, which I thought were really interesting, given, um, especially given where this particular headline is located. So let me go ahead and just see how I'm doing over here on Rockfin. Um, All right. Thank you for Rockbin members. Thank you for joining. I've got it on premium. What I'm going to do is change that to free so that everybody can listen in. Thanks for your patience. Here we go. All right. Looks good. Um, Let me know if you are having any trouble with the feed. Um, One of the things that I want to talk about also is censorship. Uh, it's definitely one of the key factors when you are losing your republic. Some people say that when you lose your country, the first thing that goes is your economy. And I beg to differ. I actually think that the first thing that goes is um, is your free speech. I think that's the first thing that the enemy, whether they are an outside enemy or an enemy that's working within against its own people, I think that's the first thing that they want to go after is your speech. And so, that's definitely something that we should be thinking about as various platforms are disappearing right and left, and more people are given algorithmic favor while others are squelched. Great. I just wanted to make sure that my audio levels were working. It sounds like they are. So the first thing I want to do is read this sort of this long form tweet that came through my feed. It's from San Francisco Public Safety News. And, the old me may have read something like this on, say, what would be considered a right wing publication. And I would have scoffed at it and I would have said, oh, that's just, right wing conservatives trying to go after the trans community. But this is coming out of a San Francisco Twitter page, which is not right wing. In fact, there's nothing I would say online that is based out of San Francisco that's considered right wing. At best, it's liberal or maybe even progressive or leftist. So I'm going to read this to you, and I just want you to listen. And then if you have something to say, if you want to comment on it, by all means, leave a comment. So this comes from San Francisco Public Safety News. It's a Twitter page that I do follow. And this is from about an hour ago, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. A woman receiving high doses of testosterone in a bid to switch genders, treatment that had nothing short of medically disastrous libido-boosting effects, was sentenced to 25 years imprisonment today for a catalog of child abuse conducted at the San Francisco and Livermore daycare centers where she worked. Jace Wong, age 28, born Robin Danielle Wong, had earlier pleaded guilty to 7 counts of production, distribution, and possession of child pornography. She was described by prosecutors as a systematic predator of toddler and preschool-aged children whose conduct was among the worst imaginable. Wong filmed naked and partially dressed boys and girls in her care before sharing them with other pedophiles in internet chat rooms. She manipulated children's genitals and encouraged them to touch her inappropriately, describing in graphic detail further abuse she wished to perpetrate. Her phone contained videos created by others, which including footage of the gravest possible sexual abuse of young children. The court was told that the testosterone Wong received for her gender transition therapy, coupled with her congenital diagnosis of triple X syndrome, resulted in a calamitous increase in her sexual urges and libido. It is arguable that the medical professionals involved in Wong's gender transition should have exercised greater oversight and provided more guidance to this, at the time, young woman about the potential biological interactions of testosterone and her genetic disorder, wrote attorneys for the defendants. This is a horrific case, said U.S. District Judge James Donati this morning. In 9 years on the bench, this is the first case I've had that involved the actual physical abuse of children. And in that sense, it is the gravest and the most serious and most reprehensible crime that I have seen with respect to child pornography. So, what we have with this is, the judge basically saying, I've never seen anything like this. And we know that when a woman takes testosterone, that her libido and her behavior will change dramatically. And for her to be caring for children during this process, was incredibly irresponsible. So I wanted to kind of come out here and talk a little bit about this, and feel free to make a comment. Feel free to add your 2 cents if you'd like. I really honestly believe that we need to be paying closer attention to, situations like this. If you haven't, I'm sure you have, but if you haven't yet followed Jennifer Bielek, she is an incredible resource for the transgender situation and the transgender movement. I'm trying to be very delicate here, but after what I just read, it's a little difficult to be delicate and to dance around this subject. Another person that I found to be incredibly helpful is a woman by the name of Amy E. Sousa. She goes by Amy E. Sousa, MA Depth Psychology, embodiment-focused writer, lecturer, and activist, exposing the safeguarding failures of trans ideology and sharing resiliency-building tools. She has a website called The Known Heretic. So one of the things that she brought up that I thought was really interesting is that she clarified woman. I know that Matt Walsh came out with a movie or some kind of expose a couple of months ago, or maybe it was even last year. Who knows? And I think it was called something like "What is a Woman?" And it was really popular, and a lot of people liked it. Um, but what this individual does, her name is Amy Sousa, and I'm looking for her tweet right now. So she talked about how, there are females all over the planet, female plants, female animals, female, that there's male and female, right? But what makes a human female so unique is that we are women. So, and suddenly it takes on a whole new meaning and a whole new conversation about, what it means to be a woman. It was a little insulting to have a man do a movie titled What is a Woman? It should have been a woman to do that. So I think that if you really want to get into more nuanced conversation and more scientific conversation at the same time, then you should follow Amy Sousa. Um, and what I'll do is I'll put the link in the chat. I'll go ahead and put the link for her Twitter page in the chat right now. So there you go. Hopefully you can see that. There it is. So I think, one of the things that we can certainly identify in this situation is that, not only is it an attack on reproduction, and not only is it an attack on the existence of future children in general, but it also, this movement that isn't being careful. How's that? They're not being careful enough, and really discussing the outcomes of a person's decision to transition and what may come of it, is also just this flippant disregard for womanhood in general. And if you hear some squealing in the background, the kids are home from school. I don't have kids, but my neighbors' kids are running around outside. They're home from school, so they're making a lot of noise. If you hear some squealing in the background, personally, I like it. But yeah, I think that after I read that article, first of all, I was really shocked because you never hear the city of San Francisco talk down transgenderism. You never hear a story come out about the very thing that so many people on the right are screaming about all the time, pedophiles or children being harmed by the transgender movement, things like that. You never hear that coming out of San Francisco. So to read this was really surprising to me. So yeah, I would definitely recommend following Amy and following Jennifer Bielik and Amy Sousa. So I also wanted to talk about switching gears a little bit, but it kind of ties into this as what it means when you lose your country and what happened. Okay, actually, I'm going to pause and read this to you. I don't know who needs to hear this, but the words woman and female are not synonymous. A female is any organism whose sexual reproduction pathway is organized around the development of large immotile gametes. I think that's how you pronounce it. There are millions of kinds of female plant and animal organisms. There is only one organism that is an adult human female, and that is woman. I want to underscore the point that women share a common trait with millions of other species of organisms, being female. Further, this is the only trait that women themselves share. Besides this one exclusive trait, the 4 billion women have nothing else that we have exclusively in common. We are infinitely diverse. Here's what I'm trying to clarify. The words are not synonymous. To call a woman a female is incomplete. A woman is a subset of a kind of female. Female is a descriptor of sexual developmental path. It is used to describe the specific kinds of animals and plants that develop organized around the production of large immortal gamet gametes. Someone please correct me if I'm mispronouncing that. It's GAMETES. These plants and animals also have other descriptors. They can be animals, plants, mammals, reptiles, rodents, and primates, etc. And here are some other kinds of females: cows, mares, doe, hens, a female almond tree, a female tulip. There are millions of kinds of females of all kinds of species of plants and animals. The only one kind of organism that is an animal, vertebrate, mammal, primate, human, and specifically female humans who is also an adult is a woman. We are a very specific kind of female, not just any kind of female organism, which include millions of different types. Okay, so that's also what I wanted to read aloud to you from Amy Sousa, which I found, you know, it's like it's one of those things where we know it, we get it, but we have a hard time articulating it. Um, and so for her to break it down so nicely and say that, woman is actually a very specific kind of female and is very unique and original, it really does bring back that sense of empowerment. It goes beyond just feminism, doesn't it? In my opinion, it goes beyond that. So I would definitely recommend following this individual. She's very smart. She knows what she's talking about. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about regarding the end of the sort of the end of the country is the attack on free speech. Some people out there have said that free speech is already gone. Um, and obviously I've spoken about him before, but Mike Benz is a person to listen to regarding the censorship industrial complex. So I've said this before, but it seems as though, well, it doesn't seem as though it actually is, this actually is the case, that an entire industry was created to censor. Right now, we're looking at Rumble possibly being censored. And we're also looking at, Twitter for whatever it's worth, whoever's really in charge, whether it's Musk or the woman he put in charge, who's, I think somebody mentioned she was out of the World Economic Forum, but I don't think she was out of the World Economic Forum. I think she just spoke there. But um, I think her name is Janet Yacarino or something. Whoever's in charge of Twitter, they're really holding the line, or they're, at least it feels like they're really trying to keep the censorship algorithms, or the censorship industry at bay. So Mike Ben says 2 hours ago, I warned about this at the top of my lungs for the past, I don't know how many years. Um, I need a supercut of all my interview segments saying ultimately they will use a rule of law predicate to effectively ban alternative platforms. And this is regarding Tim Pool tweeting out that, Rumble is set to tumble possibly. So again, Mike Ben says, they will use a rule of law predicate to effectively ban alternative platforms. I feel like with the censorship industrial complex, coming out swinging and going full speed ahead against free speech in general, I feel that that is a huge tell about, the direction of the country. You know, I I feel that that's one of the first things that falls away when a country has been occupied by enemy forces, whether those enemies are from within or whether they're coming from outside the border. That's my feeling about it. Um, so let's see. Zachary Keenan says it's tough because of self censorship and political correctness, and knowing that everything you say can be logged somewhere, and your personality profile and opinions could come back later. And then your let's see. Let me see if I can grab the rest of your come back later in. I see. Um, and scientific dictatorship, and maybe we'll be held accountable for thought crimes that we have now later in the future. Yeah. So, I wrote something back in 2016, and ultimately, what I wrote was what sort of put a target on my back. And so I would say that's the number one reason why this channel, despite the fact that we've made all these amazing creative video essays and, they have tens of thousands of views, I don't have a lot of followers. It's because I'm not pushed out there for people to view, for people to support, and it's because I was punished, and there was even a court situation involved. So talk about punishment for thought crime. You better believe it, Zachary. I already went through it in 2016, 2017. My life almost was turned upside down. So yeah, and that's because of what I wrote. That's because of words. So, of course, there are multiple reasons why certain people are censored and just, not allowed to be seen. And that, we're definitely in that camp. Um, the But the variations of the different social media platforms are what's important to identify as the censorship industrial complex really does take over. So with YouTube, you're just a viewer, you're just a consumer. Whether you whether you make a donation like in a super chat, or whether you just view something or listen to something on YouTube, it's strictly for consumers. Twitter is for content creators. Twitter is considered, a platform where every time you retweet something, um, you are considered a content creator. So they look at you, the user, differently on Twitter than they would say on YouTube. Whereas Facebook is sort of a Facebook is kind of like a little algorithmic prison. It's basically an echo chamber. Everybody's in the same cell and in the same room, and despite the fact that maybe groups that try to speak outside of prevailing narratives may form, those groups are always infiltrated. Facebook is just not a space for content creators. I do still, use our Facebook channel to stream on, but it's definitely a much more controlled. The term echo chamber just keeps coming up over and over when I think of Facebook. Whereas Twitter, it's more about content creation. So content creation has a little bit wider reach. There's more like alleged free speech on Twitter. Content creation um, allows for that. And then, of course, YouTube is for viewing purposes only. Most people that go to YouTube are consumers, they're not necessarily creators. And as long as you stay within, or how about this? As long as you stay outside of certain topics, then even if you are, you know, criticizing the state practically from every angle, um, but as long as you don't go after the military, as long as you don't go after the organizations like the National Science Foundation, which builds the predicate for censorship. As long as you don't go and really go down those roads, then you're a safe bet according to the algorithms. Um, it really I really wish that I could explain how there is a certain aspect of an MK Ultra thing going on with your favorite posters and your favorite researchers and your favorite people on, especially on Facebook, but pretty much all across the board on every internet channel, on every social media channel. And so this is another aspect to sort of like the loss of your country when it's been inverted or when it's been occupied by enemy forces is individuals who individuals' personalities will change. So you'll see a lot of personality shifts, not just in the people that um, took like a medical countermeasure or took a shot. It's not just those people, it's everybody. One of the things, and I'm just being really honest here, one of the things that I don't like about the COVID operation is that it seems to be the default for like everything, like, oh, this person. So anytime you talk about behavioral changes, which will naturally come as a result of the inversion of your freedoms, and especially the inversion of free speech, you just automatically say, oh, well, the crazy people or the people on the wrong side of history, which I have said this myself. So, I'm holding myself accountable. I get it. I've said it. The people on the wrong side of history are behaving this way because they believed a lie. But there are lots of lies and they come in all forms. And it's not just about the shot. It's not just about the COVID operation. Your favorite podcaster has caused your behavior to change. There has been a radical shift, a radical break in your psychology and in your emotional stability. This is why when we first started, showing our video essays and broadcasting our opinions and our thoughts about, the situation, and that we would always begin with no heroes. And we don't mean that uh we don't mean that like, flippantly. We don't just say that just to say it, because we know that when you get into the hero worship syndrome, or you get into this complex where you start saying things like, this individual is over the target and is the only one that gets everything right, or this individual has been, announcing the truth from the beginning, and da 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 da, you lose your sense of self, you lose your sense of purpose, and you really kind of lose your way. And it's I've seen it happen, not with my own two eyes, but I've seen it through social media. I've seen this really lapse in behavior take place. And, of course, this person is on the right side of history. This person allegedly didn't get, the shot. This person, of course, doesn't even believe in viruses, as far as I know, and would be considered on the right side of history. I'm using one person as an example, but there are many, many others that I've witnessed the same thing. And because we are not heroes, and because we don't want to encourage people to lift up heroes, we oh, look, I have my first troll. Let's see. Um, because we don't want to lift up heroes, it's so funny that this person came along just as I was about ready to talk about trolls, and I was about ready to talk about harassers and people that, you know, um, come about, usually on Facebook. I don't get too many on the other channels. Um, and it's usually when, you know, it's usually when something is happening. So there's a big shift right now with what's going on geopolitically, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. There's a big shift in the censorship industry. They're pulling out, all their stops. Right? They are not. They're not just stopping with trying to censor Facebook or um, uh, YouTube channels. They're going to go after even the alternative channels. They're going to go after, definitely go after Rumble. They're going to go after, you know, everybody. So, I found it interesting that just as I was about ready to start talking about that, about how individuals will, kind of troll your world to try to pull you down is when it actually happened in real time. I think that's interesting. Scott Adams has the best reaction to trolls, which is kind of like a non-reaction. Um, he went through a really tragic experience 5 years ago where he lost his stepson to fentanyl. And, the amount of people that come onto his page and say the nastiest things to him, it's appalling what they do. And he just ignores them, He's sorry about that. He's very good at ignoring them. So let's see here. Okay, you're gone. And let's see here. You are blocked. There we go. Good for you and your little comment. Oh, aren't you a sweetheart? So yeah, I think that basically, what we have to do is think about what's going on geopolitically. We have to think about what's going on with the censorship industry. Obviously, the pharmaceutical and uh, uh, defense industry are now working together to undermine our health. Um, the the defense industry or the Department of Defense and Health and Human Services are now one. So you have to look at this as a military action that's become inverted, and they're basically all the things that they once did overseas. They're now doing on our own soil. Personally, I think that the next election cycle, which is in about a year, is going to be monitored and controlled by the military. That's what I believe. Let's see. I want to go and read something that I thought about. Somebody had mentioned, the geopolitical situation with Ukraine, and I don't really talk too much about it, but I want you to listen to what I tweeted 7 hours ago. The goal is to surround Russia via the Black Sea, expanding NATO to Ukraine, Romania, Bulgaria, Turkey, and Georgia. So this creates an encirclement. So the goal is to also target Russia's naval fleet, which has been in Sevastopol, Crimea since 1783. So that's the goal there. The goal that's the geopolitical goal. And it feels like they want to inch us towards, World War III. Whether that's going to happen or not, I don't know. But it definitely does feel like, we're getting there. When you've got your country doing things that are antithetical to your survival, your very survival, it takes on a whole new emotional and even physical and, of course, mental um, program in the way that you can function in the world. Everything is heightened now. If we do have World War III, you are living in a constant state of panic, a constant state of trauma. You're already living in a constant state of trauma because of these countermeasures that were deployed on the population. You're in a constant state of trauma because you're always being lied to. So it's no wonder that there are trolls coming out of the woodwork. It's no wonder that your friends or supporters or people that trusted have suddenly turned on you, and they've had some sort of personality break. It's no wonder that family members have lapsed into depression, and you're having trouble getting them out of it. Each and every person I'm connected to, whether it's in the real world or whether it's through social media or through some kind of connection, is going through something with someone in their life. And it's no wonder. It's no wonder, because the attacks are coming everywhere. And if you're an individual that isn't listening to people who have awareness about the censorship industry or these geopolitical events, or understand that the American domestic population has been targeted by their own military, and they're not willing to even acknowledge this, let alone even accept it or even listen to these types of things, then they're going to be in a constant state of panic. They're going to be in a constant argumentative state where they hit that feedback loop, where even if you say, I agree with you, they will still come back and want to fight you more. They don't know what they want, and they don't know what they're fighting, because they're in this weird space where they've either latched onto someone who is the only so-called truth teller in the whole world. They've latched onto them and they can't accept anything else, or they've done the opposite and they've just kind of, not they've just kind of fallen apart and given up. So that's where we are. I feel these two extremes: people that have latched onto something that they believe is true, and that their, influencer and their podcaster is, the end all be all, the only one that's, over the target, so to speak, or the only one that's telling the truth. And there's no room for nuance. There's no room for discussion outside of whatever it is that their influencer is talking about. Or you've got people who aren't even bothering to check in with even easy news like Fox or CNN. They've just given up. They just know something isn't right. So you each have to announce your individual worldview. So mine is, with the Department of Defense deploying weapons and killbox systems labeled as health protocols, I don't care what your worldview is, your life is in danger since your country has targeted you as a terrorist. With assassin's precision, they trained for this moment by practicing on other countries for years. So that's kind of my worldview, where, the American domestic population is being targeted for um, for war. So the US government is making war on its own people covertly through the conversion of chemical and biological warfare programs directed into the public health emergency medical countermeasures programs, and is working in collaboration with global institutions and other national governments to make war on all on the planet. Right? So this is my worldview. This is what I believe. I don't know, and within that worldview can come little subsets of information, like, yes, there will be smart contracts, and yes, there will be, some variation of Internet of Bodies, and yes, there might be 15-minute cities here and there, and yes, there may be, martial law in some areas, and yes, you'll have this and that and the other. But you begin with the fact that the US government is making war on its own people covertly through the conversion of chemical and biological warfare programs into a public health emergency medical countermeasures program and is working in collaboration with global institutions and other national governments to make war on all. So you have to begin somewhere. You have to begin with your own unique worldview statement. And I guess that's, I'll go ahead and wrap this up by saying uh, if you can find a way to, at least for your own sake, make your own worldview statement. If you think that, this is all just this is truly what we believed at the very beginning, that it was all just some silly marketing campaign so that some tech companies could get paid. That's what we thought it was at first, just a marketing campaign. And that, but then as we realized that it's an actual, medical countermeasures program where chemical and biological warfare has been waged on the human population. And we realized that, if tech companies benefit from that and market their own sort of campaigns around this, that we sort of had it wrong. Like, it wasn't just a marketing campaign, it was so much more than that. So your worldview as of today is what it is. If you can write it down, if you can recite it to yourself, is your worldview. It's what you believe is happening, and it encompasses everything. Always with the understanding that eventually your worldview might change. Individuals also change. There are individuals that I've never thought in a million years would say or do the things that they've said and done to me. So I am never, ever caught by surprise. So, let's each write down our worldviews. Let's focus on what those worldviews are, and let's stay really focused on our, on our individual selves. Um, I don't know if it's possible to do this, sort of community come together, this, that, and the other. I think it's really just that we have to to take care of ourselves. I do believe that there might be some kind of turning. I don't want to get too woo about this. I know that other people, they go a little bit deeper into the woo stuff, but I definitely believe that, there's something else on the horizon. And as each situation turns into yet another trauma inducing experience, you're going to have a um like a reaction first. Like, for instance, let's take what happened in Lahaina, Maui. At first it was shock, because that's what you do. You shock people, and you wear them down first through shock and awe. That's what we learned from Bush, right? Shock and awe. So you shock them, and then they are devastated and sad and and in mourning. They're in mourning for the loss of whatever it is that they lost, whether it's, their land or their freedom or whatever. They're in mourning. But then right after that comes the anger, comes, the rage and the anger and the demand for justice, right? So, these are the cycles that we're going to have to keep going through again and again and again, and they're going to be prepared for those reactions. So if you are being baited, don't respond to the baiting. Stand up for yourself when it gets to be too much and punch back. One good, strong punch to take them down. That's it. So, and Zachary is right. There are the different stages of grief, malaise. We've all gone through that, where it's really difficult sometimes to just, even get out of bed. I get that. So there's definitely something coming around the corner. I think that we should take a look at what's going on geopolitically. I think we should take a look at what the goal is. The goal is to surround Russia using the waters of the Black Sea and using the various countries that sit on the Black Sea that I just mentioned. I also think that we have to focus on the fact that free speech is kind of gone. The First Amendment has been kind of erased. And after that, everything else will just topple. So, that sounds really, um, really dire, but I kind of feel like that's where we are. Um, that's what we're witnessing. And what's going to happen is in a few years, the generations of kids that are maybe like in fourth grade now, by the time they're college age or supposed to go to college or supposed to get their first job, you're going to see a rage in a generation like you've never seen. So I'm Generation X. We were just like, we were kind of like a sulky generation. We kind of felt sorry for ourselves because we came right after the baby boomers who basically had everything handed to them as a whole, not you specifically. If you're a baby boomer listening and you struggled, whatever, I'm not targeting you. I'm saying as a whole, the baby boom generation had it much better than the generation after, Generation X. So Generation X is just like really bitter, and kind of inverted, and took their bitterness and turned it inside and created music, or created, different attitudes about things. Um, but I think the generation that's coming after, what's the generation now? Generation Z? I don't even know. But the one coming after that, I think, is going to, um, I think it's going to really fight back. Um, and I don't think that, I think they will be a force to be reckoned with. I don't know if I'll be alive to see that, but I sure would like to. I sure would like to see it because I feel like that's what's going to happen. And I think a lot of people that are transitioning, and have fallen prey to you know gender issues, really they are mentally ill people, and they're being told by their support network that, they need to change their gender. I think that, well, we're already starting to see some of those people who have transitioned, they're really angry about being duped into it. And so those people we need to support. Um, but yeah, so I appreciate you guys listening. Thank you so much. It's a little nuanced, but I think that, there's definitely something going on, and I think we should pay attention to what's going to happen with Rumble. We have some things on Rumble, but not a lot. Um, so yeah, so we'll see what happens. All right. Um, you guys know how to reach me if you need to ask any questions or anything. And have a great rest of your day. I was a little late today, so I appreciate you hanging in there. All right. Bye.